G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't seen it yet, I've got some pretty cool news for you today. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably would have seen that I announced a few days ago that I have joined the Humminbird Pro Staff team. So what I'm going to be doing today is fitting one of the Solix 10s to my Hobie PA14. I haven't seen too many Humminbirds being installed on Hobies, so if you're scanning YouTube and you come across this video, hopefully it helps a little bit. Massive thanks to the guys at Humminbird. I've already installed the 2 units in my boat and I'm really impressed. Mega imaging is amazing and the reach you can get on side scan in such shallow water is also next level. That's enough talking for now. I'm just going to go make a start and see you in a minute. And I would just like to point out how tricky this is to film. I thought it was going to be quite easy, but it's not. So what I'm going to do is just get straight into it and I'll go through the stuff that I'm using a bit more while I'm fitting it up. So I'm going to do the most time consuming thing first, and that is going to be mounting the transducer. It'll mount on there something like that. So then when I pull the transducer cable, it will pull back up inside the Hobie. Keep it nice and protected, out of the way from the bottom or trees or snags or anything like that. And the way I loaded it up on my ute, I actually couldn't leave it externally because it would end up getting knocked off the first time I loaded it up. Alright, so I don't have a workbench in my shed because my boat takes up most of the space. So I'm ready, I've got the Guardian off, I'm ready to mount the transducer to the Guardian, like so. All I'm going to do is I put the little spacer on the back of the transducer, and there's 2 reasons for that. One, I can just screw straight through the Guardian, straight into the transducer spacer that I've put on there. And the other reason is because the hole on the Hobie in the middle, it's flat and then it dips back down. So with that spacer, it just brings it down a tiny bit so your side scan beam can shoot past the hole, if that makes sense at all. If you are going to do it this way and drill straight down through the Guardian into the transducer spacer, I will say be very careful not to use screws that are too long that'll actually hit the transducer, because that wouldn't be good. So I've just taken that little spacer out so my cable's got somewhere to run through. I'll feed the cable right through it. I have pulled the cable right through the Guardian and I've currently just got it sitting there. All I've got to do is put some screws through the bottom, up into that spacer, get it nice and square, and we should be good to go. I've got 4 screws in the back. Shit is on there nice and straight. So that's probably the hardest part done really. I've just got to run the wires back up through to the sounder and we'll go on to the next step. So out of the factory, the pull cord to the Guardian's not actually connected. It just goes around that roller and then I've got it tied in a knot. So I've untied that knot there and I've fed the string back down towards the Guardian. So then when I pull the transducer cord, it should come back up, just like that. I'm just about to mount the Guardian back on. All I have to do is push the transducer cord up through the center of the hole and then tie the transducer pull cord off onto the cord that's on the Guardian. I've got the pull cord tied off, a couple of 1/2 inches there will hold it on, and all I have to do is mount the Guardian back on. Okay, so by now there's probably been a couple of people that have noticed that I've mounted the transducer backwards, and I've done that for one reason, and that's just because it was easier to run the cord that way. Once I get it all wired up and finished off, I can just flip the orientation of the side scan in the settings on the sounder, so it shouldn't be a drama. That's what the transducer will look like when it's deployed, and when I'm traveling and pull it back up, it will look something like that. So it's up nice and flush with the hole. Next up, I have to find the right size grommet for that to suit that size cable. It'll end up running inside the hole down here, and then out at that point here, which my sounder will be mounted on the rail just there. So one, I've got to find the right size grommet for just the transducer cord, and then over here, find the right size grommet for the transducer cord and the power cable. I've got the transducer cable running through the grommet there. There's the old blank one, and I have to do the exact same thing down here, but with the power cable coming out as well, which will come from up the front. I suppose the trickiest thing about this part here is making sure your cables aren't touching any of the steering cables or anything like that. You sort of want to keep them away from any moving parts. And I'm going to try to keep them off the hull as much as possible. Just a little bit more longevity, and I don't want to have to pull it out ever again. Once I've got the transducer cable coming out of the tackle tray holder there, I'm just actually going to move on to the next part, which is fitting up some power. So I've got a 17.5 amp hour FPV battery, and I've also got the 5 amp regulator as well. Probably need that more so if I'm going to add a power pole later, but I'll probably end up with 2 batteries if I do that. I've also got the shaft mount, which will go onto the back of the battery, which will just push straight onto that shaft there. I'm going to mount the shaft mount, which will push straight onto that shaft I showed you a second ago, and it will screw straight onto the back of the battery. Probably don't recommend using a drill for this part either, but I'm capable. Right, so I've got them on there nice and snug. The battery will connect to the regulator simply by these quick disconnect pigtails. I'll push straight in. And then from the other side of that, that's the cable that will go to my sounder. So pretty simple. When I've got it all mounted in there, the battery will sit on the shaft mount there. My little regulator will sit down there somewhere, so I can just disconnect it, grab that out, put it on the charger, and it'll probably be stored away from the kayak. The cable that comes out of the regulator will go to my sounder. I might have to get a little bit creative with cable ties to hold that in there. I'm up to the stage where I've got to run the power cable to that grommet, so I won't actually hook that up, but as you know, that'll go in there. That power cable will come out of that grommet, and so will the transducer cable, and then I'll be nearly ready to mount the sounder on there. Power cable and a transducer cable run through the hole where it's going to come out. Take my appropriate grommets. The next thing I'm going to do is flip the kayak up the correct way, get these cable lengths right so there's not heaps of extra cable flopping around everywhere, and finish cable tying some stuff up and finish product. I've got it mounted up there. I've just got to pull these cables through like I mentioned before, and we're nearly done. Righto guys, I've got the sounder all mounted up there. It's just on demo mode. So one last quick little look. The battery mounted on the mast. I've got the regulator there. I've sort of had to cable tie that up, but it's nice that I've got the connection right there, so I can just undo that, take the battery out, put it on the charger. Got the heavy duty Railblazer mount, Railblazer swing arm, and the Railblazer platform that the sounder is mounted on. So there you have it guys, I've got the Solix all mounted up. Just lastly, a couple of quick key points I will make on fitting a sounder to a kayak. So number one would be mounting your transducer as straight as possible. just to get the best reading. So number 2 is good solid electrical connections. Waterproof if possible, but yeah, you just want to get them the best you can because you don't want to be doing things twice. Number 3, no loose cables, so all mine are cable tied up nice and neat. Won't hear them bang around, shouldn't have to worry about it, they should be spot on. Alright guys, I've got the Solix all mounted up. All that's left to do is go test it out on the water. Unfortunately it's a bit breezy, so I don't think I'll be doing that today, but I'm super excited to see what this thing can do. Hope you're liking video, hope it didn't drag on too much, and I hope it'll help you fit your sounder in the future. Thanks legends.